You're about those nights where you're just like, well, I don't know if you guys wear a Garmin, but you like wake up and you're like, I kind of feel tired. And you look at your watch and your watch is like, don't do anything today.
Yeah.
You were like not recovered.
Yeah. Have you ever been negative?
No, I heard at least my watch doesn't go below 5 in like the body battery thing.
Yeah, I've definitely pushed those boundaries a little bit.
Really?
Oh yeah. I've actually had it tell me I was dead once.
No way. I'm like, go to the hospital right now.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm almost 31 right now, and it feels like it's really in to be healthy and like on top of like, oh, if my back's hurting, you can Google whatever and get like endless information on how to resolve all your problems. When you guys were my age, did people really talk about it, or is it just like, oh, it's just part of getting older? You're just gonna have aches and pains.
And there's a lot of the idea of just like tough it out, bro. Like that whole mentality, which is
especially for dudes.
Obviously bad. Yeah, for sure.
I didn't really think about it that much when I was your age, Jason. It's like it just wasn't really a thing. And and
totally.
And actually I only started riding mountain bikes when I was 36. So I didn't have the kind of injuries that I started getting after that until I was like probably in my like late 30s, early 40s. So
yeah, you were in mint condition when you started mountain biking. You know?
Yeah, totally, totally.
I think the peak of my mountain bike racing, I was like mid 30s.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You're giving me hope.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I like to hear that.
World Cup
And
2027, Jason.
I'm going to Korea or wherever.
Don't
Just
call
wait.
it a comeback.
Yeah. I've been in the shadows. It's, I don't know. I mean, this year turning 30 felt like a milestone because it's supposed to be, but it was a good opportunity to reflect on a lot of health things, you know, and like try to make changes and all that. And we were talking about the Spotify Wrapped. Strava just did their version of that this past week. This is the most I've climbed in a year, the most I've ridden in a year. Like all of my numbers are the highest they've ever been, which is cool because I've put in effort for all of that. But yeah, I know it seems,
Are there any e-bikes
very popular to be healthy. No, it's I know we're not on a lot of e-bikes today. They're,
Do you segregate your rides?
So
Like e-bike
Strava,
to non-e-bike?
I do, just because I'll log mileage on test bikes
Right.
in Strava, but Strava itself, when it does your year-end totals, does not include e-biking, as far as I'm aware, because the numbers don't add up on my end at least. So that's just, and I don't Strava in bike parks either. I log it as snowboarding and then change it to bike afterwards, so it doesn't count your climbing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, a little pro tip for people out there. You can do that.
Didn't I see an article recently on Vital about how e-bikes make you fitter?
Yeah, we did have a contributor who did a pretty cool test on that. Dude, I mean, I think pedaling an e-bike feels very similar to how I can treat my road bike rides, especially on like consistent grade, where you can your cadence can be a lot more consistent, and then you can focus your ride around that. Where
It's
doing
base training.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yep.
you don't have
That's
to
what
spike your heart rate.
That's what I tell the kids. Like I've been doing my base training for the last like 4 or 5 years. At some point,
Yeah.
at
Troydon,
some point, like if I start actually training, they're going to be so screwed because they're going to
When
have
was
such
the
a
last
strong
time you-
base.
when was the last time you rode a non-powered bike?
Man, like that wasn't a downhill bike. At least 5 years minimum, maybe longer.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Are we doing highs and lows today?
It's either impressive
Okay.
or it's unimpressive.
Yeah.
My low happens to coincide with that same subject. So,
All right. Should I rip an intro and we can get into talking more about e-bikes and our highs and lows for the week?
sure, let's do it.
Do you think we need intros for this
I don't know.
podcast?
No, just introduce everyone. Like,
All right, I'll read it off because we're only on podcast number 3.
okay.
So-
Right.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is episode 3 of Vital MTB's new podcast show, Bikes Unaffiliated. This is our spot to chat about bike-related topics that aren't necessarily focused on current events, racing, interviews, reviews, things like that. I am Jason Schroeder. Today I'm joined again by Lars Sternberg of Flowcraft MTB, as well as Troydon, is it Murison? Is that how you say your last name? Did I botch it? Murison?
Yes.
Owner-operator of Crestline Bikes, who I'm sure a lot of our listeners are familiar with. And then we have got Spomer in the background, pulling the strings while we record. Today, our topic is, where do we see e-bikes heading in the next 5 to 10 years? What are they missing or lacking still? Where's the biggest room for improvement? So we're going to get into all that. We were kind of just riffing on how Troydon doesn't ride regular bikes at all. So you're perfect for this beyond just being somebody who owns an e-bike brand.
Totally.
Do you want to go right? Let's just go right into what's in, what's out from the week. Do you want to go first, Spomer? Because you just had something that came to mind with what we were talking about.
Sure. Since we were talking about when's the last time you rode a regular bike, my out is staying off my regular bike for as long as I have, because I've just been riding e-bikes for a bit. And yesterday, I went to ride the rut track again. That was an in, but I did it on my pedal bike, and I'm not even kidding. Like, I parked the car, crossed the grass through the rocks up onto the road, like paved road, to start doing it. I'm looking down, what's stuck in my brakes or my wheels or my cassette? It felt like I was going backwards and nothing was wrong. It was just that hard to pedal. I'm like, oh, this is riding a regular bike again. Yeah. So I got some laps in, but instead of like 10 laps with all focus on, the turns and the track, just like, okay, now I got to get up the hill and, do things like that. And so that was a downer. And also access batteries, because 2 days before on the e-bike, I ride over there, get up, and I don't pay attention to charging those things at all. And I get to the top and I'm like second gear away from granny and the shifting goes out. It's because I forgot to charge the battery. So I did a couple runs and I'm like, this is lame. Thankfully, there was someone else up there with an access setup. And so I grabbed their battery, was able to shift down into like halfway down the cassette, not quite, so I could have a little bit more fun and get home. So that's out. What's in is...
you can just pull the derailleur. You can actually just like yank it and click it through gears and push it.
No. Like on a transmission one?
On a transmission, you can literally just grab the cage and like yank it with your hand, and it will like click through gears, and it will stay in wherever you leave it, and you can push it back the other way.
I have a question. Are your derailleurs free for you?
Yeah.
It's a functional thing. It's a functional thing. Like, I think it's supposed to be able to do that.
Full ham fist Troydon over here.
You should try it, Shawn. Let us know.
Yeah, I will next time. I'm not going to charge him ever again now if I can just move it by hand. My what's in is the raw video with all the Scottish dudes just having a great time on some super sweet track. And my question is, why do the UK dudes look like they're having so much more fun than anyone else on planet Earth? Like, do we not have the ability to have tracks like that around here? Or are there kids that are doing it and I just have no idea? So I'm not a huge tangent, but like, those guys always look like they're having so much fun and they're cheating with the dirt that they have and the leaves and the woods. And it seems like they can just walk up on some hillside and skid something super fun in there. So that's my tangent.
I think it's all the free space they have over there, like all the privately owned like farms and whatnot. They have to have gates for passageway of like livestock and whatnot. Like there's a totally different setup there.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah.
Cool.
Who wants to go next for what's in and what's out?
I'll go. I'll start with what's out. Spomer and I were chatting about this, but the weather here right now is pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
We're getting hammered. We at our house were directly not affected, but like not very far from where we are, there's like massive flooding in Bellingham and the surrounding areas. I mean, it's terrible. Like, so many people are displaced. A good friend of ours in town, his PT clinic flooded for like the 3rd time in like 5 years or something.
Jeez.
So he's actually closing it down, which is a total bummer. So shout out, Seth. Thinking about you, bud. What's in? Ex-transition athlete Sammy Toe Jammy just completed last night the fastest known time from Auckland to Wellington in New Zealand.
I saw that.
Some insane stats, 396 miles or 638 kilometers, 17,821 feet or 5,400 meters in 17 hours, 21 minutes. Pretty insane, pretty epic. Charlie Murray was doing live updates with him and full support crew and helping keep his like hydration and food intake monitored, and it was pretty rad. So check it out. Shout out to the whole crew giving Sam support. Pretty awesome.
Cool.
That's great. I don't know the math on that. Do you know what the average speed was he carried?
It was like 30. He was averaging, I think, 36 kilometers an hour.
That's
okay, now
pretty
somebody do the
insane.
conversion.
Yeah. I was like calculating all this like right before the podcast.
22
so-
maybe?
Not
Yeah,
20
something like
something,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 20 miles an
22.
hour average for
That's
17 hours.
insane.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Dude, that's
He is a
crazy.
machine. Yeah.
Just 17 hours. 17 hours doing anything, no matter what it is. Sitting,
Yeah.
standing,
Driving.
being awake. Like, no
Yeah.
matter what it is so long. But to be on a bike is mental.
Oh yeah. There's a video. Charlie took a video of him like rolling into the finish line, and the first thing everybody does is spray him with champagne, and he can't even talk. He's I'm all sticky now.
Yeah, his eyes are
Poor
burning.
guy. Yeah.
Troydon, did you come to the table with some what's in, what's out?
Sure, I've got a what's out, and that's
All right.
not planning your travel correctly or not making an effort to plan for your travel. so I went on a trip recently, and I thought I could figure out a way to get into mainland China, and did some very basic research on which ports to go in or not go in. Ended up getting turned around 3 times.
No way.
and then finally got in the 4th time. So that was out. But actually, the people were pretty good and fairly helpful. The one thing I find quite interesting, and this is with factories as well, is like you have to ask the right question. Like if you don't ask the exact right question, you get like a totally different answer. So like if you ask for like a transit visa, they might say, sorry, that's, or if you ask for a 10-day visa, they'll be like, no, we don't do that. And then you'll ask for a 5-day visa. They'll be like, oh, sure, just go to that counter over there and you can get a 5-day visa, So, but I've noticed that with factories as well, like when you explain stuff to them, and I think it's to cover themselves as well. So it sort of makes sense. But I've had a frame before where it had Crestline on one side, but not on the other side. And I was a little bit confused as to, it was at least a sample frame. And I was like, how come there's no decal on the other side? And they were like, well, if you look in the PPT that was done and like, it didn't specifically say that you wanted this on both sides.
Crazy.
But I mean, maybe there was someone who just wanted on one side and then they put on both and then they were in trouble, So
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
So, and then what's in is, I think like electric motor, because the weather is like Lars says it is right now. And I find I'm pretty bad at like we were saying earlier, like I haven't ridden regular bikes in a long time. And even the e-bikes, when it starts getting quite wet, get quite like, kind of treacherous to get around on. And when it's this wet, I think riding moto is pretty fun. So, yeah.
Sick.
So that's
I like
it.
that.
Can I add a what's in for you, Troydon? That
Sure.
I'm sure we'll get into, but someone pulled something from your Instagram. We're going to have a 200 mil travel e-bike.
So we're experimenting right now with some lengths.
Okay.
And actually the reason is we've got a rider that's riding for us next year, and he's too big for our downhill bike, because our downhill bike, we only have one size because we did it with a prototype mold. And he's pretty tall, same height as me. So we want to see if we can figure out the e-bike frame for him, and then we've made some bolt-in bottom brackets as well, and so we're busy testing the longer travel lengths. And I think now that they've gotten to a point where they look the way they do, it's kind of hard to even tell really, because if you put it next to like the new Scott downhill bike, for example, that's got that little like cover at the bottom to, because they have that internal shock, kind of looks like a little motor cover on an e-bike. Honestly, like you put those two bikes next to each other, it's hard to tell one's an e-bike and one's not. So
Yeah.
so that's pretty exciting. Yeah, I was pretty interested to see actually how many people were interested in it. Go ahead, Slot.
If I guess the rider correctly, will you say yes or no?
Sure.
And I don't have any inside beta, just based on the height and status of said rider, but Jack Moore?
No.
I know.
Yeah, I got real excited for a split second.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
totally.
oh, that's a good guess.
And me, selfishly, I was like, sick, Jack will be in town.
Yeah. I need to do my what's in, what's outs, but not tangent too much. But you guys are making basically a little cage that'll fit in where the motor is, right? To make it a regular bike. That's what you were just saying.
So it's like a bolt-in bottom bracket. And then my idea was to have, it's still like just a quick thing now that we just CNC'd. And I've been thinking about it for a long time, but I've been holding off because I feel like the older bikes looked so bulky. But now that they've gotten to the point where they are, it feels more appropriate than ever to have that optionality. And so you basically pull the battery out, pull the motor out, bolt this in. And then once we've validated it and everything's good, my idea is to have a bottom bracket that you can either add weight to. So like have some area where you can add weight for if you want to race it or have it in the bike park or as a downhill bike, or have it as a storage area for someone who wants to use it as an enduro bike. So that's something we'll still have to figure out, but yeah, that's the idea. So should be cool.
That's sweet. I love the modular concepts with e-bikes.
Yeah.
Like all of that sounds, you basically answered a question I didn't even get to ask. So that's pretty sweet.
Well, and actually we found it's like, it's quite light, like set up like that. So I think we're going to have to add weight. Because once you get the motor and battery and that stuff out, it's actually a fairly light bike. So
Yeah.
There's actually less frame material there because there's an open cavity in the bottom.
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Do you have to, is that like a,
And we did like we did like BB stiffness testing. So in the factory, like when you're doing your frame layups, they always do a BB stiffness test where front and rear triangle is attached, and they're basically pushing the BB left and right. And I thought maybe with the CNC thing we would lose some stiffness, but it actually was slightly stiffer than it is with the motor in. So that was quite a positive result as well.
Sweet. I dig
Very,
it.
very nominal, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, really quick. My what's in, Jocelyn tray flipped El Toro. I'm sure everybody saw that. It was pretty sick. My what's out, Jocelyn winning Thrasher Skater of the Year. I think it should have been Tom Shar. I'll go out there and say it. Then the other what's in was just, I was kind of catching up on a lot of video content. And there's been a lot of post Downhill World Cup season kind of small documentaries that come out, like the GoPro one on Jackson, the little Loic video he put out. I think it was like the Red Bull. I actually didn't watch the one with, what's his name? Warner. There's like a podcast I think that him and Loic did that looked good from little excerpts I saw. And then FMD had like a longer first episode come out, like just some good content. And I feel like on B Practice over the years, we've really bitched about just like content around downhill, maybe not telling good stories or giving insight to riders. And I don't think they're listening to our podcast, but overall people have been listening. We're getting more of that. So that's cool. And my other what's out, two quick ones was brake adapters. I was doing a lot of brake testing last week, and I just hate dicking around with washers and brake adapters. Like, can we just make everything post mount 220? I would be stoked. Just run it like that. And then batteries. Tanner and I went for a road bike ride this weekend, and the front derailleur on my road bike, the battery works, but the motor, I think, has just finally lived its life. And so I'm stuck in my biggest gear. And on the ride, I was telling Tanner about it. I'm like, it's like a group ride. I'm like, yeah, like I have to stand on the climbs right now. I don't have my front 2 gears. And then he was like, oh, I forgot to charge my bike. Like, sometimes the front will get stuck in a gear because it uses more power to do a front shift on Di2 than the rear, like the small ones. And like 30 minutes later, we're just cruising along, and Tanner's like a few people ahead of me, and he's like, God, his cadence has got to be like 120. Like, he's just ripping. And I'm like, what is he doing? And I get closer, and he's like, dude, my battery's finally got too low, and I'm stuck in my smallest gear. And we were on like a fairly competitive like group ride of like, I don't know, 25 people or so. And he's just like going for it at like, you're doing like 25, and in his highest gear, you're like really spinning at that point. So
high cadence.
Yeah, that's the what's out nuances of dealing with electronic drivetrains. I don't want mechanical on my road bike by any means, but there's some factors there. So, okay, let's get into some e-bike chatting. And I kind of had this thought just a minute ago, actually, as I was doing the introduction. But Troydon, for those who don't know you, maybe, do you want to give just like a small background on how you got into this whole mountain bike space and then starting a brand that's now become an e-bike brand?
Sure. So I was basically in the music industry for a long time, probably about 17 years. And at some point I ended up in LA, and I had a couple friends that were living in the UK at the time that I grew up with that said to me, that had gotten into mountain biking in the UK, and said to me, dude, you're in a place where there's a fair amount of riding, you should get a bike. And I was like, okay. So I kind of looked around a little bit, and I said, you guys are crazy. Like, who am I going to go ride this thing with? And I don't want to go and spend $5,000 on a bicycle. And then I had a friend come to town, and this is probably like 12 or 13 years ago now. Had a friend come to town, and he wanted to go into some of the local stores to see what bikes we had in the US that they didn't have, like Intense or Santa Cruz at the time. Those kinds of things weren't as prevalent in the UK. And we went into a shop, and when we went into a shop, a Kiwi guy pulled in the back in his pickup truck and had a downhill bike on the back. And I started chatting to him, and he was like, dude, if you get a bike, you can just come ride with us. And then he explained to me that they drive the truck to the top and then they just come down. And I was like, okay, this is starting to sound a bit more interesting. And so my first bike was an Intense 951.
No way.
And yeah, and I literally like just got thrown in the deep end. And I still remember the first time I went out with the guys. We rode a trail in California called Payuma, and I had like a little skateboard helmet on and some knee pads that you just strap around on the outside of your pants. And I think I had maybe like 1 or 2 panic attacks that day, where I was just like, I'd never been in the woods like that. Like, guys were kind of gone. I didn't know which way to go. I started like freaking out a bit. And then, did it a couple more times and said to them, I need like 6 months to a year, and I'm going to be faster than you guys. And it obviously took a fair bit longer than that. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into mountain biking. And yeah, it was just a really cool community of people that I met, and just grows over time, right? You just meet more and more people that are like-minded, and then at some point kind of lost the passion for what I was doing with the music stuff, and was very passionate about riding, and said to a friend of mine, hey, why don't we were kind of getting into the e-bike thing, and there wasn't really the bike that we wanted to ride wasn't really available at the time. And we were like, hey, why don't we make a longer travel e-bike? And we laughed about it. And I said, well, let me just go and do some digging and see what it would take to do it. And actually randomly reached out to a number of different people. One guy that was fairly instrumental was Larry Pizzi, who used to work for Axel Group and was local in California. And we had just met him on the trails. And he gave me a bunch of contacts, like actually the factory we use now for assembly. He had some contacts at VIP as well, which is who we use for manufacturing. I had met Greg at one of the Fox downhill races that was at Big Bear. Mm-hmm. I accidentally sat on a chairlift with him, and so I reached out to him, and he told me I should consider chatting to Cesar from Uno and Thero Designs. And yeah, just literally did some digging to see what it would take to get what we needed to actually be able to make a bike. And then we decided to give it a go. So yeah.
Crazy. What's the time that it took from having that idea to actually having a production bike you're selling?
So I want to say, I feel like it was December of 2021. Or was it 2020? It was either 2020 or 2021 where we had the idea. And then we formed a company in the January of the following year and started the process of trying to get a bike designed. And it was peak COVID, so it took actually the doing the bike and developing the bike wasn't difficult. And we actually, I think, ended up having some cool things happen. Things like the factories, we did one size. I actually worked with a guy who used to work for Evil Bikes, who helped us on the 3D surfacing of the first e-bike that we did. And we had only done one size, I think the size large. And at the time, the factory had sent home all the main sort of staff that was working in the factory because of COVID, but they had kept all the engineers in the factory and locked them down because none of them had COVID. And they were kind of bored because there was not really anything going on. And so they offered to do the two other sizes for us. So
no way.
We gave them the geometry and everything, and then they had the kind of large was the one that we had finished, and they went ahead and did all the two other sizes for us. So that kind of expedited things a bit. And then the challenge came in where we couldn't get parts, even though people were very helpful, and they were like, when we started the process, they were like, you should order your parts now because parts are 24-month lead time right now. Mm-hmm. And so we did that before we had even designed a bike. We had kind of ordered parts, but those parts still didn't really show up when they were supposed to show up. So, we probably spent it was about 18 months, had everything sorted out, had the bike done. We were ready to go. We just, frames were manufactured. We just couldn't get parts. So I remember doing stuff there were certain companies that wouldn't set us up with accounts, like OE accounts out of Taiwan, because they were battling to fulfill their existing customer orders. But they said, hey, we can get you a boutique OE account in the US. And so I actually ordered some parts in the US and then had to send them back to Taiwan to get assembled. And then they sent the bikes back here with those parts.
That's wild.
So that was, and so during that whole process, because we felt like we were kind of a bit stuck, we decided to do the downhill frame. And actually the downhill frame came out before the e-bike frame, even though we designed the downhill frame after the first e-bike frame.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of pitched the first question is I thought you guys started with the downhill bike and then started making e-bikes. I didn't realize that's how that went. Okay.
Yeah. So we had always planned to do the e-bike. So we did it. So this is
Interesting.
I'm trying to think back to exactly, I can probably look, but exactly when, this all happened. But so if I look back here, so I think it was 2021 was that first year. So the January of 2021 was when we started. Then we did the e-bike. And then at some point later in 2021, when we had validated everything, I was like, okay, it was probably near the end of 21. And I could see that we weren't going to have parts and stuff in time to have the bike released kind of like end of Q1 of 22, which is when I sort of wanted to try and do it for. We then started making the downhill bike, so end of 21. And then we managed to release the downhill frame quickly, probably like July or August of 22. And then our first official kind of e-bike stuff was beginning of 23. Yeah, when we had parts and stuff to assemble.
Yeah, was the first e-bikes when this came out, was that a Bosch system?
Yeah, so that was the
Okay.
Bosch Gen 4 CX Race is what we had on that first bike, with the screen in the top tube, and actually stayed fairly current for quite a while, even though we didn't have it for like super long. And the downhill bike, the interesting thing about the downhill bike is, and the way we got it done so quickly is, we were quite fortunate. Like when we got introduced to the factory, I think they realized that we didn't know what we were doing. So they were fairly kind to us, and they allocated a very experienced person to us to be our, I guess they call him like your PM, your project manager, or your contact window, or like basically how you deal with the factory. And so we got an extremely experienced guy who had actually worked for VIP for like, I don't know, between 15 and 20 years. And he actually set up factory number 1 in Vietnam. So I think the first 2 lines, he set up the entire workflow, everything. So knows the entire process of making a bike, and very good with English, so very easy to communicate with. And so he was helpful in getting the e-bike to where we got it to. And then somewhere during that process, he told me he was retiring, and I kind of panicked because I had, dealt with sort of other people in the factory. And the thing that really helped with this person specifically was, if we had an issue with something, he could go directly to the source. So I didn't have to get hold of him and then have him talk to, someone else, if it was something in R&D or something in QC or something in, the test lab, like he could just go directly to that person, because in essence, he was their boss, because he was so senior in the factory. And so when I found out we may be losing him because he was retiring, I managed to talk him into consulting for us. And so we kept him. And when I told him I was toying with this idea of doing a downhill bike, and that we wanted to do it in, and we weren't going to be doing big numbers, like it was kind of almost like something to do while we waited to get parts on the e-bikes. And we love downhill, and that's kind of the heritage of biking for myself and my business partner Mark. So and he suggested using a prototype mold, and then we decided to just do one size prototype mold. What happens when you do that is, they'll tell you can only make a limited number of frames with that mold, because it's made out of a much softer material. So it's easier to machine, so they can machine it quicker, but then it doesn't last as long. But the bonus is they'll do all the layups in the R&D center, so you don't have to schedule mass production. So you can bypass like a lot of that time of waiting to get in line, get the mass production done. And so you can do it quite quickly, because, we did that downhill bike in probably like a 8-month period from when we started to when we were selling the frames. And then the factory did an amazing job of looking after the mold. So they told us we could make 25 frames. And I think at this point we've made about 85 from that mold.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and again, like I wouldn't have known any of that stuff without, having someone so instrumental, that understands the whole process, and gave us all this inside info. So I think starting this during COVID had a number of things that ended up helping us, as opposed to something that was most people viewed as like, you guys are crazy to do this at this time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
Very much right place, right time.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
The production side of, I feel like we could turn this podcast into that right now, because it's so like, even I don't really know that much, but in my mind it's just like, where do you start? Which it sounds like that is sort of how it goes, and like anything, you slowly learn things and pick things up. But okay, one question I do have is, this individual that is like basically your contact at the factory, when it comes to like I feel like I hear all the time where a brand will develop their bike in the US, their R&D is here, and then they get it made in a factory. It kind of just sounds like, the simple understanding is like they just send off what they've created, and then it gets made, and then it comes back to the US. But like, I guess, do you have to pay that person for all their time? And
Yeah.
is it like a going back and forth of like, how is that all looped into just like getting the bike made itself? I guess, I don't know. It's really fascinating, because there's like this person that nobody really talks about, probably with most brands, that's at the factory, that's super, or few people are really instrumental in what actually gets made.
So I don't know how many people do it in the exact way that we do it. I think maybe it is a common thing, but it just fell into this. Like, we just fell into this. I didn't like specifically go, this is the way I'm going to do it. This is just kind of what happened.
Yeah.
And Lars might have some insight into this, having worked at other brands. But basically, like, he is our consultant at this point, because when he retired, I talked him into being our consultant, and he's been with us since then. So that's probably a good 2.5 years at this point. And I talk to him all the time, pretty much daily, and so any questions I have, but I've also learned a lot from him over the last however long. And so at the end of the day, the things you need is, you need your geometry. And in your geometry, it's not just the geo of the frame, it's the kinematic points as well for your suspension. And so once you have that, then you can go to someone who does 3D surfacing, and they can shape the frame around those points. So you can maybe sketch what you want the frame to look like, and like give them an idea of how you want it to be shaped. And then they'll do the 3D surfacing. So they'll turn it into like a 3D drawing that, they'll send back and forth with you, and you can look at it from all angles and get them to change certain things. And there are often challenges that come in with clearance on the chainring side of things, and chainstay length stuff, and, etc. And then literally, once you've got that 3D drawing, you can go to the factory and be like, please make this frame, And so you give them this 3D drawing, and you'll have a 2D version of it as well, and then a 3D version of it. And then they'll go off and they'll check everything and make sure that they're okay with all your clearances and your tolerances, and that you haven't used a wall thickness for the carbon in a certain area that's too thin because you were trying to squeeze something in. And so then they'll give you feedback on what you've submitted to them. And then you'll go through a couple rounds of changes and tweaking that stuff. And then at some point you'll basically sign off, and they'll go and make the mold, and maybe you'll start with one size first, and they'll make the mold, and then start doing like a test layup, start doing some testing, see, you give them criteria to test to. You can either just say, oh, cool, just do like an enduro test, or whatever their standard tests are, or you can give them other parameters. And so what I did from the beginning was I actually purchased a bunch of frames that were made in the factory, and I said to them, can you run your tests on these frames and tell me what they come back at? So like, what is the BB stiffness on X frame? what does the ultimate strength test get to on this? Like, when did the head tube fail? When, and I just took all of that stuff and created our own, because I didn't have like a reference of how to do that. So I just took stuff that I knew and that I trusted and made sure that we're kind of above that, So we may sacrifice a little bit on weight, but I made sure that our bikes are strong, and like there's weird things like, the length of the fork used when they do the ultimate test. There's probably a standard length, but if you're running a 180 fork or you're running a longer axle to crown, there's more leverage on the head tube when they do the ultimate strength test. So I've also learned that stuff. So I've always pushed that to be on the longer side than the shorter side. And and so you just kind of figure that stuff out and just try and use as much common sense as possible. And then along with that, just get as much advice as you can from anyone that you talk to and do the best job you can to create a good product, So, but honestly, like, if you just do the thing, you could do it,
Yeah.
It's just,
It's impressive, though.
Yeah, it's super.
Well, you're very lucky to have met that person from VIP,
Totally.
because the
100%.
person that does the modeling, you want them to be very experienced in the tooling side as well, because they know innately, like, oh, this area you want to have more robust than this area, or you need to adjust this, you need to tweak this here because this could be, like you said, like a clearance issue or anything. Kind of cuts one layer out for sure.
And that's a super important point that you're bringing up. And actually, our first frame was the most challenging. And we did all that 3D surfacing domestically. And then we had some clearance issues. We had to do some updates to the tooling. It was challenging. And then when it came to the downhill frame, and we had already had the sort of aesthetic of what the bikes were going to look like, my consultant suggested I use someone who ran the 3D department for VIP, who had also retired and was a friend of his and is in Malaysia. Cool. And so I used her to do the 3D surfacing on the downhill bike. And touch wood, have not had one issue with any downhill frame to date. I think that also primarily, a contributing factor to that is probably also the fact that those were all laid up in the R&D department. So those are all very experienced people. And then when you get to mass production, it's different and it's harder to control. There's, not as experienced folks. They're doing a bunch of different frames. So that exactly what Lars said. So now we have a 3D surfacing person that used to run the 3D department at VIP, knows all the tolerances, knows all that stuff. So when we did our latest e-bike frame, was kind of, or even when we did the update to our first Bosch frame and retooled that so that we could put the new Bosch stuff in, the BDU 38, we used that person. And then I'll continue using her as long as I can because, she's extremely efficient and fast. I think the first e-bike took to do one size was like a 4-month thing, maybe a little bit longer. And she did our downhill frame in like a month.
Wow.
So, yeah. So insane.
So on a mass production standpoint, would you say you'd rather have frames that are made on a Monday opposed to a Friday? I'm joking.
No, I mean, it's kind of an interesting question because, I think it's just, you just don't know. I mean, here's something else that I did. On the first frames we ever released, we had a couple paint issues or parting line issues where the frames, where the carbon joins, sometimes if they don't prepare that surface perfectly as the frame flexes, you'll get almost like hairline cracks in the paint. And we made white bikes, and we had that happen around the shock tunnel area on a couple of bikes. And, you know, I just felt like, I don't know, it was just going through this whole learning process, right? And so when I ultimately visited the factory for the first time, I asked them to take me through all the different lines. And they actually have like 4 lines in the factory that we're in. And we were on line X, and I went to the packing department in all 4 of the lines, and I just looked at the quality of the frames. And then I did like a little experiment with this consultant of ours. I said to him, I'm going to write down my opinion on which line I think is best and which line I think is worst. And I want you to do the same. And I try to get like someone from VIP to do it as well. And so myself and our consultant ended up with something very similar, where we were like, I don't know the exact numbers, but it was like line 4 was the best, and then I think I went 4, 2, 3, 1 or something like that, and he went 4, 3, 1, 2 or something. So we both kind of agreed that line 4 was the best line for us, hypothetically. That, I don't know if it was that exact number line, but and he actually then told me that that was the oldest line as well. You know, it was one of the first 2 lines that he had set up. And I think what they were doing was they had like one of the lines was just seemed very busy. And it seemed like they were doing a lot of stuff, and like there were a whole bunch of different frames on that line. And then I found out that, and that was the line we were on, and I found out that that line was the newest line as far as workers go. And so I was a little confused, because I was like, you've got the newest line with the most inexperienced workers, and they're doing the most different stuff. So they're like constantly, they're smaller brands, they're smaller numbers, they're changing more frequently. And I spoke to the owner of the company, and he said, yeah, but they're new, so we want them to learn. So we're doing like a bunch of different stuff. And I was like, in my head, I was like, like maybe that's not the best for us to be on that line where there's, you know. And so I kind of, like, we had these issues, and I said to him, can we do an experiment on the next bike? Can you move us to this line just to see, you know, if we have a different outcome? And you guys can use that internally to see if this makes sense, you know, putting all the stuff on one line, making them change so much. And we had a much better result on the next batch that came off of that following line. And so we're like, I just beg to be kept on that now. So, you know, hopefully we can stay on that line as long as possible. But it is interesting, like they get a packet of a bunch of cuts of carbon, like different shapes. And then they have what's called an EPS core, which is basically like the inner part of the bike. And then they start wrapping the carbon around that. But they have to wrap it exactly as they have a layup book. And so they have to follow this book and like wrap these pieces of carbon in a very specific way around this EPS core. And so it's not easier. Like it's definitely, and it's very time consuming. And I think that is probably one of the most critical steps in the whole process, because that's the foundation. Like if they miss layers or they put things in the wrong place, or like that kind of follows through to the end. Even if everything from there on is absolutely perfect, you still like could be missing something in some area on the frame, you know? So it was pretty interesting to see that. And I didn't go to the factory for the first 2 years because of, again, COVID, you know? But after our first run, I managed to go. And that was when I was like, hey, can we? And I think that was helpful as well for us.
This is quickly turning into a production podcast, but I do like it.
Well, no, I think it's fascinating. I think the listener is like, it's all really interesting stuff. And I mean, the way things work over there is pretty, I mean, I think there are a lot of misconceptions, I think, about how that whole process works. And it is easy to get stuff messed up. Like I remember working with core components back in the day, and we had with the Jill and Bryn team, we had these bars that we ran, and then we got a batch of bars, and their bend and sweep was totally different. And I could tell just by holding the bar that it was different. And like they had just randomly inserted the different mold press for the bar and they had no idea.
Crazy.
And like we had Lance, who was our contact at Core at the time, came out and like laid all the bars out and took measurements and was like, yeah, these are totally different. This is not like our bar. And somebody had randomly grabbed a different mold, you know, or the bending mold or whatever. For
Yeah,
them.
I think there's like this perception of like, oh, designed in the USA but made in Taiwan. It's like you send over a PDF file and they hit print over there. You know, like that it's that simple, and it's clearly not.
It's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's and the two sides work so much more closely together than you would think.
Yeah. I always feel like there's especially in the US, there's a lot of people that there's good reasons to be very like pro-US produced goods and all of that. But then that can kind of get translated into like, ooh, like Asia bad, like bikes getting made over there isn't good. Like we're getting things made and like, I don't know why. There's just like, sometimes there's like preconceived notions about that world over there. And maybe it's because it is behind such a veil and it is literally far away and brands aren't super transparent. But the little bit I've heard, especially since I've been at Vital and I get to hear about the production of bikes, I'm always like, wow, there is a incredibly smart team over there that has to make this happen. Like it's not all like it seems really obvious to say, but I actually don't think it's that obvious to a lot of consumers.
Yeah.
Well,
So.
things have been made, consumables that we use on a daily basis have been made in Asia for so long that they have their just general manufacturing processes so dialed that like it's so much more advanced than we have because it's been happening there for so much longer that is their primary industry and they're just really, really good at it.
Yeah, definitely.
I have to agree with that. It's like, it's insane when you go and you actually realize what goes into it. And I'm surprised there's not way more issues. Honestly, like I think they do an incredibly good job. And the other thing is they're incredibly responsive. Another nice thing, I don't know if it's just, you know, where we ended up, but they're very gracious and they're very open to accept when they've made a mistake and they'll own it and they'll work with you to sort it out. And they're not trying to hide and be like, this was your fault, or there's very little of that, which I find extremely refreshing because, you know, you're just trying to both achieve something. It affects both of you. So it just feels like you're working together with someone and, you know, they take responsibility when it's their fault. But in the same light, if you make a mistake, you also need to take responsibility. So, and I think as long as both of you are doing that, you can have a pretty like productive relationship and figure things out, because things will go wrong and there will be challenges and you know they will CNC some shape too big or too small, or and they, you know, like things happen. It's pretty complicated when it comes down to it, you know, like you have to sign off on these drawings too. So once you've submitted something to them, then you get back their 2D version of the drawing and you have to try to go through everything and sign off on every little thing and make sure every tolerance is right. And I'll be honest, I've signed stuff where I didn't check it properly. And it's like, find out afterwards. But it's like, as long as you take responsibility for that and, you know, you could just figure it out and get it done. And yeah.
Yeah, it's cool to hear.
Yeah.
But it's exactly as Lars says, they've got so much experience at this point doing it. And I mean, I would love to, like, I also like the concept of making frames here, like being able to go to the factory here locally, see what's happening, get stuff quicker, whatever the story is, you know. I think it would be like substantially more expensive. I think it would be substantially slower. And I think it would take a long time to get to the point where these guys are at, you know. Because you think about how long, I think VIP has 3, 4, at least 5 or 6 factories, right? So I think they have one in China. I think they have one in Myanmar. And then I believe they have at least 3 in Vietnam. I think one is like a dedicated big box brand factory. So like you can't actually even go into it because that's only for them. Actually, 2 of them. And then I know they have another factory where they still make like rackets, like sports rackets, like tennis rackets and like carbon rackets, because that's how they started. It's like a sporting goods company, yeah. So
Without going
Wild.
too into the weeds or like asking for specific numbers or anything, like what kind of scale is Crestline versus the other brands that are made in those factories? Like, do you know? Are you like, you know, 1/10 the size, 100th the size? Like, is that something you can talk about? I'm just curious. We don't even have to go down this road.
So I asked the question. So like, I like to try and get as much info out of them as possible. It's kind of hard to get concrete numbers, but I would say compared to like a really big brand, we may be, you know, like 5 or 10% of what they're doing.
Okay.
You know, like like a big box
Yeah.
brand. But then when you look at like some smaller brands, the more boutique brands that are maybe a similar kind of vibe to us, we're probably still on the smaller size. I think smaller side of things. I think it's also because we kind of have like one main thing, which is the e-bike, and so I don't think we, you know, like if like a lot of them have like 2 or 3 models, or some of them maybe 4 models, but we're definitely making as many e-bikes as them, you know, maybe even, you know, a very similar number of those, but as a total number of frames, probably less, because we're not making other models as well, you know.
Cool.
So yeah.
Should we talk about e-bikes a little bit?
Part 2.
I know. I wasn't gonna say it at the very beginning.
So now we've
but I
made
think
them, so now we can talk about them.
Yeah. And we have e-bikes now. No, I had texted Lars and Spomer that I was like, I get a feeling this topic could go pretty long, so maybe we just sort of plan on a part 1, part 2, but we haven't even got to the topic and we're an hour in. So part 3 is in the future, maybe. I don't know. My first note, which maybe is a cool place to start because it's where you guys are currently, is you started with Bosch, you make the move to DJI Motors and all of that whole system. And I remember you actually calling me a while ago now to kind of like, I think you were just trying to weigh people's views on like what we thought was cool and stuff. And I remember that conversation making me think quite a bit because I don't ride e-bikes a ton. And at the time, nobody had ridden that system yet. So I was just like, yeah, like, I don't really know. It doesn't, whatever my views were. And then now it's all people are talking about is like your guys' bikes, the Forbidden, and then the Amflow that has that system seem to be like, everything is getting compared against that. And maybe there's not a specific question in there, but like, how did you decide to make that choice when you did? And then what is kind of your view on the impact that's had going to that new system?
I think like making the choice boils down to being a bit selfish, honestly, and just wanting to choose the thing that I want the most at the time.
Okay.
That I think makes the most sense for me. So like, I think that helps us as well because I ride these bikes and I just want to have the sickest, coolest thing for myself. and I'm just hoping that what I think is cool, somebody else will hopefully think is cool and buy from us.
That's a good mission statement.
Yeah. And so when I saw that system, it's just, I think the nice thing was you got to get an idea of the reliability and, you know, what it was going to be like because it came out on those Amflow bikes first. And I managed to get one of those fairly early and just try to thrash the thing, you know? And I was pleasantly surprised by everything and the functionality of it and the characteristics of it and just the whole package and the way it looked and everything. And so I was like, we have to make one of these and we have to make one as quickly as we possibly can because I want us to be like early on this, you know, as early as we could be. Obviously, no one could be as early as Amflow was, but in that next wave, I thought it was really important to have one Now we're
Was
going
it-
back into
was it
this
hard to get on their
production
list?
podcast. We're back on the production podcast. I think because we were there early enough, it wasn't too difficult. And I think fortunately for us, like we had already released some bikes. We had some reviews. We've had pretty good response from someone like Rob Rides, for example. And I know that they went to him a lot in the beginning to try to get a sense of whether what they were doing was valid. And so they looked to
Interesting.
someone like that
Well-
as, Go ahead, Lars.
I've heard a bit of a, well, I don't know if it's a rumor or not, but that the reason that there is the Amflow bike is because in the early stages of the DJI process, it was hard for them to find partners to work with because it was an
I heard
unknown,
the same thing.
right? So,
Yeah.
so at a certain point, they were like, well, we'll do the easy part. We'll just make the bike.
I heard the exact same thing. I actually
which
heard
is
they
interesting.
approached, I heard they approached like some really big brands. And I guess when you have a product and there's no way to validate it, it's hard for a brand to be like, oh, cool, yeah, we'll be your launch partner. And so I think they had a hard time getting people to, and I'm sure those guys now are kicking themselves because they could have launched at the same time as Amflow, and maybe Amflow wouldn't have even been a thing, honestly,
Right.
Yeah.
if that had happened.
Been the flagship partner.
Yeah. So, but I think at this point, I think they've tried to split Amflow away from Avanox. Obviously, it's still technically you could view it as their biggest customer, so they're going to listen to what they want. And there's the history of that being, I guess, like an in-house brand of some sort. But they are trying to say, like, they've got a dedicated team and they've set up a different company that's Amflow, but I think that, like them doing that and realizing how many bikes they could sell and how lucrative that was is now means that they will try to continue with that brand. I just hope they didn't get a false sense of what's possible because they had this unique system that everybody wanted. They were one of the only ones that had it on a bike.
Do you feel like
So-
Amflow's been successful? Because I mean, we rode the bike, and the bike itself was, all right. It's pretty uninspiring. It was the motor and
Yeah.
battery that were the cool
Yeah.
part,
Dude, the
But I think
bike's
that-
dated.
Yeah.
I think they've sold a ton of them, and I think it's because everybody wants to try the system, and so I think they've got this like sense that they can sell that many bikes, and so if we were like a bigger brand, and we were directly competing with a brand like Amflow, I would maybe be a little bit more concerned, but I just don't think we have the same customer base.
For sure.
And I think that they may make, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but they may end up making more bikes than they should when they do their next run of bikes or next generation of bikes, whatever they do, because, right now I feel like they sold a lot of bikes because people just wanted to try that system. And when people can get it on a whole host of different bikes like, Megamo, Common Cell, Forbidden, Uno, us, like, I just don't know that there'll be the same demand for that specific bike. But, time will tell. So,
Yeah. Dude, I was on a ride 2 weekends ago with my buddy John, who had an Amflow that I think, hope I'm not blowing him out, but I think it was payment for doing a shoot for them or something like that. And he's a dirt jumper, and he's like, this thing is so fast. It's the sickest. I don't really care the Geo's a little old or whatever. And we're on the trail at the bottom of a descent. Two old dudes come pedaling by on e-bikes, and he's like, that's an Amflow. And John's like, yeah, you want to buy it? And the guy's like, I mean, how much? And John's like, oh, like kind of going back and forth on price. He's like, hey, like, why don't you ride it? Because you obviously, all he cared about was the motor. Pedaled it up the little fire road and back. In the parking lot after the ride, he sold it to the dude. The dude was just like, I want one that bad. He bought
Yeah.
it right then and there.
I want that.
Yeah, and I forget what he was on. He was
Give
on.
it to
He
me
wasn't
now.
on like he wasn't on a Gen
Bosch
4
or-
Levo or something. He was on like
Yeah.
a very dated bike outside of even like the motor system, and so clearly he didn't really care about how the bike maybe rode. He was looking
Yeah.
for like the more, better, most mentality, which kind
Yeah.
of seems like a lot of people around e-bikes in general right now. So I thought it was pretty entertaining though.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, have you guys had an easier time selling the bikes with the DJI system versus the is it DJI or
Totally.
Avanox? By the way,
It's
like, what is
Avanox.
that difference?
So I think that's another thing where they're trying to differentiate because of the stuff happening around DJI, especially in the US.
Okay,
So I think they've split off totally as well. And there's no DJI logos on anything anymore, and it's all Avanox. So
so we
Yeah.
gonna,
When we
gonna
did
lose
our
all
review,
the,
they asked us to call it Avanox and not say
Yeah.
DJI at all.
we're about to
yeah.
lose all the monetizing on this video because I keep saying IJD. But so, yeah,
So-
you've
but
had
yeah,
an
we
easier
definitely-
time moving these than the Bosch
Yeah.
ones.
I think timing was key. So like having it,
Okay.
having one early, I could have made more in hindsight, but I also just wanted to get them here, get them out, make sure everything was solid. So we did 100 frames, and I think when we didn't announce them as early as everyone else, I feel like Sea Otter last year was when Forbidden and Uno and them already had announced them and everything, right?
Yep.
So that was, quite a long time ago. And we had I think we had about 300 Bosch bikes early this year. So right at the beginning of 25. And I was obviously working on the DJI bike in the background, knowing that we needed to hustle to kind of get one at the same time as everyone else that had been talking about them for. Because I don't know when that first thing was leaked from Forbidden, but I want to say the owner of Forbidden posted something in 24, near the end of 24. And so we managed to get through the Bosch bikes, and then we managed to, I flew motors and batteries here direct from China, and I flew frames here, everything air freight from Vietnam. So my duties were through the roof on those 100 frames. Sure. Through the roof, $100,000 duty invoice just on motors and batteries. So 100 motors and batteries, $100,000 in duties alone. Never mind what we paid for the motors and batteries, right? So, because I think it ended up being and that was when the tariffs had reduced to the reciprocal 30% or something. And I was like, okay, cool, let's do it now. It'll be fine. But then it was the 30% plus the old, whatever it used to be, which was 20 something plus a 232 tariff plus. So it still ended up being 75%, So,
Gosh.
I know. So, but I still think it was worth doing because, we got through those first bikes, and then around I think it was May, June-ish timeframe, we announced them, and then we shipped them in July, August, So we actually shipped long before Forbidden. We shipped before Amflow had them in the US. So we were kind of the first to get them shipped here. And I think that was very valuable because we've had, everyone who got one super stoked. We sold them really easy. I think I did an email. We didn't do any marketing. I did an email that I sent to 200 people that were existing customers that had bought bikes from us before. And I said, please don't share this information. I wanted to send this email to you guys so you have first opportunity to get one of these because we're only making 100. And I think
That's cool.
the first thing they did was upload that to a forum.
I know. I think it hit tech rumors instantly. Yeah.
So it was just it was just insane.
Whoops.
I actually went to race hot laps with Jill's event. It was on that weekend. So it was on the Friday I sent out the email. Saturday I went to race hot laps. Sunday I had to literally remove the web page because we had sold, I think, like 75 bikes, and I wanted to make sure I kept some for dealers, you know? And then I had people emailing me saying, I think somebody stole my money because you had like this web page up, and like I paid for it, and now I can't even find the web page anymore. And I was like, no, it's cool. It's like, I just had
It's
to do
all a
this.
hoax.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then on the Monday or Tuesday, I got hold of Kaz, and I was like, hey, can we please do a super quick like announcement that we released a new bike, because it's already sold out, but I still need to at least say we released a new bike, you know? And so that happened way quicker than I expected, you know? But then we've obviously had a ton of interest, ton of sign-ups, and really good support. And so we're pretty excited about the version that we can release next year. I made some changes to the frame and just optimized some things, and yeah, so.
Are you going to do more than 100 this next go around?
Yeah, I think we're going to do 300, and I'm just doing frames. Yeah. So
one thought I've like, now it's easy to be like, this was a great choice to move to this system. It's like so much craze around it, but I also
could have
think
gone the other way.
Yeah, it could have gone the other way. And then too, like Bosch right now seems real popular because it's verified so much by a lot of different users. And then it seems like the access to get issues resolved is pretty good. And I don't know what it's like with the Avanox system, but like, do you have to weigh out all those? I mean, I'm sure you do weigh them all out.
100%.
And then you just kind of assume the risk that like, I think it's going to work out good. And like, they're going to stick behind, you know, making their motors accessible and getting, you know, not just going to like their own brand and all those things. And
yeah, so you do have to take all that stuff into account for sure. I think that they are, in essence, backed. Maybe when they started, huge company, right? That started this. DJI is like a massive company, really good customer service history, like fairly well-known brand across the world. And so you've got to take some trust in that. And like anything that's new, definitely not without some challenges, but very receptive to feedback. It's a new space for them, and they're active, you know, like they're getting stuff done. And so we've managed to deal with anything we've had to deal with so far. Nothing's been crazy issue. Actually, the system's been quite a bit more reliable than I thought it might be when compared to things in the past. And yeah, so I feel good about it. You know, I think that we took a chance making the choice, but I'm happy we did. You know, like I with hindsight, I would have done the same thing. So yeah, and I think it's going to get better.
An 800 watt hour battery.
Yeah, they have 800, or you can put a 600. But the other thing I was going to say is, like, if you think about Ampflow too, as a smaller brand that's not as affected by that sort of like cost bracket that Ampflow is targeting, I am happy for them to go and sell a bunch of bikes and sign up a bunch of dealers, because all they're doing is creating a support network. You know,
yeah.
So if they can add tons of dealers, that's amazing from my perspective, because
that's
just
great
gives,
for you guys. For sure.
Yeah, it just gives our customer another touch point when they have an issue. You know, go into the shop, they've got the Avanox portal, you know, because they're an Ampflow dealer, they'll be able to do a diagnostic on your bike, and they'll be able to sort out any issues. And they have a warehouse in California with, you know, warranty stock, so it doesn't take very long to get stuff. So yeah, I think it's solid. Lars?
And does that battery, how do you swap the battery on yours? You don't have a door, but is it relatively easy to swap the battery?
I'd say ours is like almost like a hybrid removable battery. I wouldn't call it like a quick release removable battery. Like if you looked at our first bike, which was just a clip that you pulled, or you basically opened a little area with 2 bolts on the motor cover, and then you pulled a clip, took the battery out, slid it in. That system was riddled with connection things. Like if you didn't get it perfect, we actually ended up making a a clip with Cascade components that worked better than the stock clip, to the point where we were being asked to recommend that to our customers. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but because it wasn't a part manufactured by the people who manufactured that system. Anyway, so then in the second version, I didn't want to go through that again, so I basically just made some plates that bolted to the battery and a little like kind of loop that bolted the plug into the battery, and then you just bolted those plates to the frame. So you would have to then take out like 4 bolts, pull the plug out, and you could take the battery out. So you don't have to remove the motor. You can still like remove it, but it's not like a super quick swap like the Specialized Levo where it's just like in and out the side. Or, but if you're traveling, or you can take the motor cover off the bike, take 2 bolts out, pull the battery out, put another one in.
So a 20 minute swap versus a 2 minute
yeah,
swap.
Maybe 10. If you've done it a couple times, 10 minutes, yeah. So
cool.
And then you get the best of both,
Were those plates? I remember crossing paths with you, and you had somebody local do some 3D printed ones. Is that the plate that you're talking about?
That was, I can't remember if that was a spacer that we made. I think that was a spacer that we made. I think Janky Eric did that, remember?
Yep.
Yeah.
Janky.
So Eric Olson. So he helped us out with like a spacer because we were trying to take up the play in the stock system and almost clamp the battery in with more force. And so we made a little spacer plate that he 3D printed for us. And that worked really well. Like we had way less issues than a lot of other people. I know Canyon had like some major issues with the battery disconnecting. So yeah, so doing that stuff is just like ride the thing, ride it, like treat it badly, when you're testing it, and try to find those issues and figure them out before they get to customers.
So what are you riding right now? What's the next thing? I know it's a bit, maybe we can't dive into too much, but
He's riding a Crestline.
I'm basically riding like an updated version of the DJI frame that we released. And it's like very minor updates. Like I did some, I don't know why, but the shape of the down tube on the one that we did was bugging me, which is probably like something that only I was noticing. But I just felt like the top corner of it was too square on the down tube. And so I changed that. And then I changed the cable routing because I've never loved the way, the dual link platform that we use, that some other brands use as well. You always end up with the brake cable running past the shock. And I've never liked that, like having these cables coming past on both sides. And then, when we went to this DJI system, Bosch has like a speed sensor built into the motor, and then you just have a magnet on the rear wheel, so you don't have that cable. But the Avanox stuff, you actually have a sensor at the back wheel, which arguably works better because they have a number of sensory points. I think they have quite a few.
Like 104 or something? Yeah.
Yeah, it's something crazy. It almost looks like an ABS disc, as opposed to only getting a reading every one turn of your wheel. They're getting like 148 points. So, but then we had like a brake cable and this cable together running past the shock and like stuff like that. And so I managed to run the rear brake almost like you would see on a V10, where it kind of comes out the side of the frame near the main pivot and then goes into the rear triangle right by the main pivot on the rear triangle. And because that is, if you think about that, that's like a CNC link. So that distance doesn't change, even though it's rotating. That distance between those 2 points never change. So if your brake cable comes out right close to that point and goes in close to the other point, that length never changes. So you have this tiny little exposed piece of cable, and then I managed to run the speed sensor cable and a cable to power your derailleur, or you can run a regular analog derailleur. And I managed to run those cables kind of underneath the link into the into the chainstay. And so you don't see those at all anymore. So literally you have this tiny little piece of brake cable exposed. Nothing past the shock anymore. So it's just made the bike a lot cleaner. And then I managed to shrink the bulkiness of the area around the BB because they offered another charging port design. So those were like the changes to the frame. So I'm riding that with the Avanox system in it and super happy with it. So
Cool.
I will say, general comment, there's a reason a lot of bikes have terrible cable routing is because it is one of the more challenging things to design around a bike, like getting your cable so it doesn't pull a bit or bunch up. Like, it is way harder than you think.
Yeah.
What about just putting them on the outside of the bike?
Oh, that's weird.
Or
just go wireless, wireless
still-
brakes.
Yeah, you can still do
nice.
that, Jason.
Right now I've got my rear brake zip tied on because I'm swapping between brakes.
Yeah.
So a lot of things you're touching on are like, little details as you've gone to like a V2 of this platform. But as you've ridden the DJI system more, where does your mind start going with like e-bikes? Like what are you like, oh my gosh, if we could have a little bit more here or resolve this thing that's happening in these situations? Like what, I
think the two biggest things are probably the two biggest things that everybody is kind of obvious to everybody. And it's like, when do we get a solid state battery or a hybrid solid state battery or some kind of battery tech that actually makes a big difference in weight, as opposed to this like incremental percentage of 3 or 4% that you save as the years tick over? Like, when do we get like, I think NASA managed to figure out some solid state battery that can, I think the problem with a lot of those was they can't discharge quickly enough. And I think they've managed to figure that out, but I don't know when we'll get that. But that's like, for me, a huge thing where that's like, okay, now you have the same size battery that's 40% lighter, And I think when that happens, that's huge, because then you could have an 800 watt battery that's 40% shorter than what you have now. So it gets the weight down, lower in the bike. And if you want, you could still have an 800 watt size battery like you have now, but that will be 1200 watts. And you'll just be able to go on some like seriously epic rides. Because I still, living in Bellingham, I can still burn an 800 battery like fairly easily, So I think that's a huge thing. And then the other thing is when is someone going to figure out some kind of a gearbox thing? Like, does it need to be a gearbox, or can it just be a single speed? Like, I don't know. Like, I think about riding my stock dirt bike, for example. Like, there's no gears. The front chainring just spins to whatever RPM, right? Like, why do we need gears? Why can't we just figure that out?
Because like you have like software-based like speed tuning, Does that make sense?
I don't know. Like at the end of the day, if you ride any e-bike and you trigger overrun, you stop pedaling with the cranks and the front chainring carries on going. So why can't they just figure out the relationship between your cadence and that, and some ratio that works, and then just you have like, you don't have gears, you just go,
Yeah.
So I think that like, because I think the gearbox thing, like, I don't know, like I feel like gearboxes have been around for a very, very, very long time in vehicles. And if they haven't figured it out yet with whatever gearbox technology is, I just don't know if someone's going to be able to come along and change it where, I think it's like what they've done is good, but I think there's still those challenges of like the carriage shifts. So I think on like the Pinion MGU, there's 2 carriage shifts. And so like all the other shifts are okay, but then when you hit a carriage shift, you can't do it under load, or it makes a big clunking sound, or like whatever. I don't know exactly what happens, but I know there's something. And I think maybe for the downhill guys that are running gearboxes as well, that may be there. And I don't know why they don't have a smaller range where they don't have those carriage shifts, you know. But I don't know how they get over those things. So that's why I'm like, isn't there another way to do this? You know, so we'll see what happens. But those are the two big things for me.
A Tesla goes 0 to 150 with no gears, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So why? Yeah, why do we need gears? I think you top out where like a Tesla won't be able to go as fast as a Ferrari, like top speed, because eventually it does top out, like the thing just can't spin any faster.
Right. And you'd have to keep it under control for a human, but the idea, there's no shifting, there's no gear changing going on.
Yeah, and these bikes, like most regions, the fastest you can go is 20, right? So surely like between 0 and 20, they can figure out what RPM they need to get to. And so, yeah, so we'll see. But that's what I'd like to see, those two things, before I'm too old, which feels like it's happening awfully quickly.
I would say there's a difference between gearbox technology where you have a shiftable mechanism with your drivetrain in a gearbox versus automatic shifting, where I own a powertrain and it does have the automatic shift mode. When I'm riding technical trail, I can't ride in the automatic mode because there are circumstances where you want it to do the opposite of what it's trying to do for you. Like where you're where you want, like it's operating the shifts based on your cadence, because it's like you're going this speed, your wheel is rotating this speed, and your cranks are going this speed. You should be in this gear. But you, as a rider navigating the terrain, you need more tension on the pedal than it's giving you, because you need to keep the front wheel up or something. Okay. Weird little circumstances like that. So I think there's a difference between the way a bicycle and the operator of a bicycle interact together than it just will do it for you.
Yeah. But I feel like I feel like they should be able to like mimic, like if they can just develop the relationship between how fast you spin and what's happening to that front chainring, they should be able to almost just have fake gears, right? Or have fake ratios where it's like, okay, cool, you want it to feel like you're in a harder gear, cool. Just that's what it feels like.
So you're thinking there'd still be like manual input from the rider?
I feel like there probably will be like similar to what Lars has, where there's maybe an option for, like something similar like that, where it automatically does stuff. And then there's an option to just lock it into things. And maybe there's not as many, or maybe each one has a little range. So, it's not like a traditional gear that's just, okay, this is the gear. Maybe it's a gear that has a range of whatever, I don't know, a certain cadence for, I don't actually know. I'm just like, I feel like there's something could be done. I want to believe that something could be done where it doesn't have to be as complicated as a gearbox. But I could be wrong, Yeah. Yep. So
I feel like the one thing we haven't maybe talked about is just like motor power. Like, do you think we're in maybe not like topped out, but it feels like we don't need more power from the motor. Like, depending on what terrain you're riding, which can be very varied, like there was a lot of that with the DJI, like, oh, it's so powerful. But I'm always like, do you actually need more power? Like, it seems like we have plenty of power. I don't know, like without getting the top speed actually higher on these things.
Yeah. I don't know where I sit on this. Like, I think it's hard for me because I'm 6'4" and I weigh like 100 kilograms. So I'm like at least 220, right? So for somebody who feels like 1,000 watts is more than enough power for them, it feels like a lot less to me, just because of the power to weight ratio. So is it then fair to just be like, that's enough power? Or should it be like, okay, you have to plug in your weight, and then we'll give you the same power to weight ratio as this person. And this person weighs less than you, so he can run a 600 watt battery and have the same experience, but his motor doesn't have to put out as much power because he's that much lighter. So, he can still go the same distance as you, totally the same experience, lighter bike because it's a smaller battery, better, bike weight to rider weight ratio. And then for people on the other end of the spectrum, it's like, maybe they do need that power. And I also think that it's not something you have to use all the time. I don't know. Like I like having the power because it's, if you just need that little burst for something, it's cool to have. But we may get blocked at some point because, I think there's a lot of pushback, especially from certain brands that don't like the fact that other brands are able to do it and have as much power as they have. So, and then it's like, what happens then? Like, so say we all get blocked at X power, right? If somebody can do that with the same size motor as somebody else has, if somebody can get a lot more power out of a motor that's smaller than somebody else's, isn't it just going to be a case then, okay, well, these guys can still get then a smaller motor that's lighter, so they're still going to be ahead of the other guys, even if they get blocked at a certain power thing. So I feel like whoever can do the most with the least footprint is still going to win at the end of the day. Because so Avinox can do 1,000 watts right now with a motor that's arguably smaller than a Shimano or a Bosch or a Yamaha motor. If we get blocked at 750 watts, I believe they'll be able to shrink their motor even more and almost have a motor that's like the same size as one of these other guys' half power motors, but it'll be a full power and it'll be able to do the 750 watts. So isn't that what people are going to want then anyway? So I feel like these guys trying to block the power thing is like, at the end of the day, if someone else can still do it better than you and do it lighter and package it better, they're still going to beat you, even if we're all at the same power. So I'm looking at that and I'm like, I believe that, making this choice is because those guys I believe will be able to do that and do it better. So even if we do get to that point, I still think it's the right choice, because the packaging's better, the bikes look better, the weight is better, the integration is better. So, they still win.
Yeah. Okay, you had Bosch systems, you saw DJI or Avinox come out and you wanted that for your bike. It seems like we hear a lot of discussion, whether it's regarding e-bikes or just kind of any technology, of like a paralysis to actually pull the trigger and buy something because something better is going to come out really soon. How do you deal with that as a bike brand? Like, I know you're on top of it right now, but as a consumer, like, well, I'll just wait a year or two and see what happens next because that's going to be better. Do you feel like that's an issue for sales?
I think it is going to be hard. And I think what's happening with e-bikes is actually favoring smaller brands because I feel like it is easier for us to make changes quicker because we're not trying to make as many bikes. So we don't need as much lead time to get that done, right? We our whole, if you look at like a big brand's marketing plan, everything, the way that would have to be laid out, the plans, like everything that's involved in getting that done, getting those things to dealers, etc. I think that all the logistics of that take longer the bigger you are. And so with tech, it's kind of like a tech product now, right? Like where if you think about an iPhone, there's like a new iPhone every year and you don't need the new one. Right? Like it's not that much better than the old one that you have, but still the new one. And I don't know, some people just want new stuff. And so I think it's going to be a challenge to keep up with that because it is moving quickly. And these product cycles, like, I don't know, like Lars, what's like a typical product cycle for like a regular bike? Like,
I think the benchmark was around 3 years. Like in market, I think that's pretty standard.
Standard.
A 3-year life cycle for something. plus
Yeah,
minus, you know, like outside environmental things considered.
Sure. And I think like if I look at how we've kind of done this, like I feel like we did that first Bosch bike, we did maybe 2 batches of it, and then I changed the frame. I didn't do a complete new frame. I just changed the tooling so that I could put the new Bosch motor into it. So it was just bottom bracket area stuff. And thankfully, the new battery still fitted in our down tube, so I didn't have to change that. But I don't know that those products ran for more than a year and a half, you know? And then it was like the Bosch, the new Bosch, that was like another year, maybe, year and a half. And now this DJI thing, and we did 100, and now we're going to do another one that's basically the frame has changed. Not substantially, but it's like a V2 already. And we released those in like July, August. And we should have the new ones by like April next year. So less than a year. So, but
Well,
it's not changing. It's not
point,
changing
you know,
that much. It's like small little incremental things, as opposed to if you think of like a bike, a model of a bike, and then run the 3 years, and then it's like a complete top-down redesign. You know,
complete overhaul.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you sell through 75% of your annual inventory overnight without having actually launched the bike, it does provide you the ability to like keep up with all the incremental changes. Like, oh, let's tweak this or let's do that, which is that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool space to live in.
Well, I also think the reason why I did that too is once Avanox opened up the channels for other people to start making bikes, the demand was pretty strong. And I couldn't have gotten more motors because I just didn't forecast enough, right? So I was like, cool, let me just get in, let me do one of these things, let me get 100 bikes done. And then when I was like, damn, this is going to go, like if I try to get more, I can only get more next year anyway. So I was like, okay, well, can't do much about that. So let me take the time to refine some of the things that I want to change and refine in this period of time I've got feeding into next year. So it also just happens like, and we don't have a ton of different bikes either or offerings. So I don't have like this like 5-year plan and like have planned out the next version of X, the next version of Y. I'm kind of just like, cool, this is good. Like, I'm happy with this. How can we make it a little bit better? Let's make it a little bit better. And then like, if I see something else that's really compelling, then I need to react and get to that as quickly as I can and hope that I don't make a mistake, you know, and choose something that's not the right thing. And that's the challenging part is if you're a much bigger brand and you've got multiple different, offerings, there's a lot of things that can sustain you, and maybe you can make some mistakes where you choose something that maybe didn't work as well, but you've still got some staple stuff that's just continuing to turn the wheels. Whereas if I like at some point decide, okay, cool, I'm going to move to this looks sick, like, and it's the wrong thing, that's going to be tough, you know? So I need to try to make sure I make the right decisions and just trust that I choose the thing that makes the most sense to me and hope that, you know, other people agree with that choice. So
it sounds nice to be flexible. It does sound scary to be on the smaller side, you know?
Yeah.
Definitely comes with pros and cons. I like the iPhone analogy though. Like, I think that is a good one. Yeah. Especially like if you think about an iPhone, gosh, 15 years ago now. I don't even know how, when it was first, just every year was like a big change and you really like wanted the newest, greatest thing because there was a benefit. I feel like e-bikes are in that right now. And maybe in 10 years we'll be settled in different ways and the change year after year. We're in like a weird one now where the change year after year maybe is small from a tech advancement, but when the new thing comes out, there is like a noticeable difference. But
don't you feel like analog bikes are in that world right now where it must be incredibly challenging because these things are so good and we've really like, I don't know where else we go with geometry. I don't know where, like, I feel like they're so good
Yeah.
Like, do you need the next one? Like, how much better
No.
can it be than what you've got? Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So,
Totally.
Yeah.
so at least I feel like we've got some sort of life with the fact that we've got tech that can improve in these bikes. I don't really have to change my geo and stuff much, or the travel on the bike, or the
Yeah.
kinematics, or I don't really have to change that much. When I went from the Bosch bike to this bike, it's like I've been happy with the way the Bosch bike rides, so I don't feel like I need to recreate that whole thing again. I'm basically just retooling the same thing to fit the new tech, you know?
Yeah.
So, and then when I think about regular bikes, I'm like, damn, like that's challenging, to come up with like, yeah. So,
Yeah. Do you see any just normal components that do need to change or evolve to better suit mountain bikes? Or sorry, e-bikes?
I'd like to see us get rid of the batteries that you were speaking about at the beginning of this. You know, when we were just chatting in the beginning, Shawn mentioned his battery had died, and so I mean, right now you can wire in the
drivetrain.
rear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like right now you can wire in the rear derailleur on most systems. So we did that on our last bike, or it was possible for people to do on the last frame. And then you have things like the coast shifting, where if you shift and it picks up that's pulling power for the derailleur, it spins the front chainring, changes the gear for you, so you don't actually have to pedal. But like we need that for droppers. So
Yeah, I have had to, on a ride on my PT, I have had to, my battery die on my seat post, and I've had to pull the seat post out, connect it to the umbilical cord of my derailleur so that I could raise my seat post,
yeah,
and then put it back in the
put it back
bike.
in.
Or it
super
was,
funny.
or maybe it was to get it down. I can't remember, but
Yeah.
I thought I was hosed for a minute, and then I was like, "Oh, right, I've got power right here."
But I guess if your bike dies, if your e-bike dies for some reason, like you either run out of battery or something happens, something goes wrong, then you could be without any of that stuff. And now you're like in a situation where you've got to pedal this thing out from who knows where, because wherever you went to that you shouldn't have gone to because you're on an e-bike and you're unfit like I am, and now you've got to like figure out how you're going to get back.
Yeah, I did run out of battery on my last ride. I got it down to 5%, and the bike stopped working entirely, and it kept that remaining 5% just to be able to
Sure.
actuate the derailleur.
Okay.
But it's just like if we're driving a car, like we know we've got to manage our gas, like our fuel consumption, all that. It's kind of no different, right?
Yeah,
True.
totally.
True. I think it's more like if you have a mechanical, like if something goes wrong, and you think you've got battery, but then you don't.
Yep.
And
I definitely
knows what?
carry more tools and repair stuff on e-bike rides than regular bike rides, for sure.
Huh.
For
Interesting.
what kind of stuff that you wouldn't maybe take on a regular
Just-
ride?
Just like more tire puncture repair stuff. Like I have a kit with like more stuff for random damage to the bike
Okay.
to repair when you're out there, because I don't know, I feel like my e-bike rides are a lot more violent than my regular bike rides. You know, you're just kind of like mashing and bashing, and a lot of that comes from the weird climbing.
You guys have some
Like
weird ass climbing in Bellingham.
Yeah, like I've crashed worse climbing in the last 5 years than I have descending.
That sparks a question I had in our notes, which is, do we need all these different modes? And because it seems like a lot of people, I think most people just put the thing in turbo and let it rip, or whatever the highest mode is called. And the SRAM one has 2 modes, and I like that.
Yeah, I agree. But I think this goes back to your last question about power. And do we need all the power? And I don't want to take a dig at anything, but on previous systems, I would do exactly what you said. And I would probably ride in turbo 90% of the time. And now I don't do that anymore because I don't have to. Because there's like that incrementally more amount, like there's incrementally more power in turbo that I can just use it as turbo when I need it. And so I live in one of the other modes. I spend more time in those modes now, which could arguably be the same output as what turbo was on like another system, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like we're kind of at a sweet spot now. Like, I don't know that we need a hell of a lot more. And again, I'm on the heavier side. So, you know, but I wouldn't say no to a little bit more, and just be able to use it. And then, but I don't think we need, I think you're right. I don't think we need I think 3 modes would be fine. Like kind of like an eco-y sort of mode, an auto type mode, and then your like turbo mode. Probably be fine.
I tend to use my modes kind of like my gears, where like I'll shift as frequently as possible based on how much I need out of it, so that over the course of an entire ride, even if it's saving you 10 to 15% of battery range, like you're getting the most out of it for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Shimano has, I think they call it micro tune, where you can do the 10% increments. And I would say there's not a huge change between each, but you can treat it like shifting a lot more. And that I always thought was sort of neat. And the latest Yeti I tested that had the new Bosch update from 85 to 100 Newton meters kind of gave me what you're describing. I think that's what it is, 85 to 100. But it allowed me to ride middle of the modes more and then use the highest assist as that like oh shit, get out of trouble type situations.
Or just a punch, like a upper punch or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then again, I've got friends that like, if they had a bike that if the next latest greatest thing was double what we have now, they would immediately want double all the time. And I'm like, I think there is a lot of people like that they're like, oh wait, like I can just go do, especially I guess if the range is kind of balanced with that, you're not just burning through battery, but like, oh wait, I can go do my same 3-lap after work ride. Now I can do double that because I'm just hauling ass up the hill. And it's based on a lot of terrain things and all of that. But I don't know. It seems like that's the mentality currently, is the like more. So I'm just wondering if that'll ever balance out.
Yeah, I think you can't get away from more power taking more battery though. There's just physics involved. So
Yeah.
I think you might be able to do a shorter ride quicker if you are, if you say you've got a time crunch and you're like, shit, let me just quickly go get as many laps as I can. You might be able to get one extra lap, and you'll use, as long as your time frame isn't long enough that you're just going to use all your battery and then be like, oh shit, I've got no battery left. Then maybe there's a compelling reason for that. But I don't know. I think if you ride them enough, it's like if you get a new car that's like got a bunch of power, you're gonna gas it for a while, and then get a couple speeding tickets, and then realize like I can't do this all the time. Like, and then it kind of like loses the novelty, and then you only do it like when you really feel like you need to, and I think that kind of happens with these things as well. So.
I rode recently with some friends on Avanox systems with 800 batteries, and I'm on the powertrain, which is a 90 newton meter, 700 watt battery. And I feel like we were all just kind of like, we were all riding the same pace. And I think just for the sake of it, we were all just in the full power mode. And at a certain point we stopped, and I still had like 55%, and the 2 Avanox bikes had, they were 33% or something. And I think it just because you have the power is great, but you do need to moderate it a little bit. You need to manage it. And it just burned. It had a bigger battery, but it's just like wasting power consumption at that point.
Yeah.
I agree.
No, yeah.
I think you need to set your modes and use the tool, because the nice thing is you can set it to, it's so flexible. Like you can go into that system and you can set your Newton meters and your watts independently. So you can, and it actually kind of makes you realize that Newton meters are like the thing that a lot of people talk about the most. But I think watts is kind of more what you feel when you're actually moving. It's like the thing that keeps you at a certain speed, and because the Newton meters are that very like off the line type of torque feeling. But once you're actually spinning, then it's kind of the watts that you feel, you know. But I can, like, say I'm riding with a bunch of guys on X system, I can just set one of my modes to be exactly the same as what theirs is, you know. And so I can set my peak watts to 750 and my Newton meters to 90 if I wanted to, and go for a ride with Lars, you know, and just have my bike match exactly what his is. And it probably, I feel like range is, they're all kind of within the same ballpark of efficiency, these things, and so you all end up kind of in the same place if you're using the same amount of power, you know.
Well, I'm curious about this, Troydon, and so there's a difference between watts and peak watts, right? And if you were, say we were riding together and you wanted to match the bike that I had and you set it to 700, you're going to have more peak watts, more on demand than I would, right? Because your overall wattage is higher.
Well, I think if I set mine to 750, I'm locking my peak watts to 750. So I'm setting mine so that mine won't go above 750. So if yours has got a peak watt of 750, we would be the same. The difference comes in where, and this is where the guys that you rode with might need to play with their system a bit more. You can set the assistance levels as well in the Avanox system. There's, I don't know how the best way to explain this. So like by default, if you're in like trail or turbo, it takes very little input to get the full output. So if I push 100 watts with my leg, it's going to give me the 750 watts if I'm set in that setting of 750 max watts. But there's a way to set that so that it doesn't just give it up so easily. So that I need to put in more power from my leg. So I need to maybe put 200 watts or 250 watts personally to get the full 750. And if I'm only putting 100 watts, it's only going to give me like 500 or 600. And I think that's where your efficiency starts to really get better, is if you start adjusting those settings, you know, because the Avanox system definitely is set on the more aggressive side of things if you don't change anything. And so you can kind of just like spin your legs, and as long as you're spinning your legs, you just get all the power, you know?
Yeah.
So
that's kind of why I asked, because, you know, my bike having 700 peak watts, I don't get into that 700 peak watt range very often. Like, you have to be pushing really hard, and then the bike limits you in that range, in that peak range. It's like, I can only do this for 30 seconds. Because it's going to overheat or override the system. Whereas if your peak actual peak is 1,000 and you've limited it externally, exactly. Like, you're going to be able to live in that peak range area
totally
for longer.
Yeah. So all the watts.
Big watt talk. What do you guys think about all the displays on bikes? Like, I was just kind of, maybe I was reading in our forum somewhere, because we had done a Q&A with a few different e-bike system brands. That was pretty cool. I think maybe somebody commented in there just like, give me just percent and maybe a way to know what mode I'm in, and that's all I want. And like, simplify my cockpit and my controls. And I've ridden bikes with like kind of all of them at this point, and like, I run a computer on my road bike, and I usually have a Garmin watch on. I like kind of like all the stats, and I like the top tube display, but I don't think my dad, as an example, has a Levo, and he doesn't know anything about any of it and doesn't care, you know? He just puts in a mode and that's it.
I'm curious to see what you guys think, because I'm not a massive screen person on the bike. Like, I know people like them. And there's a whole host of things that you can have it tell you. But I actually, I actually don't pay a lot of attention to it, and I think Donnie, like Mark Allison, actually showed me. He's has one of our bikes, and he actually showed me how to put it in like a stealth mode, and you can put the screen in like a stealth mode, and all it tells you is the battery percentage in the mode. And I've ended up using that quite a lot more than I thought I would. But yeah, the stats are all there, and the screens, yeah, they're cool, I guess. But I'm probably not the best person to ask. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think about the screens. Honestly,
I'm in your
I know
same
like
boat,
customers
Troydon.
love them, eh? Yeah.
I suspect a bit of it comes down to how familiar you are with the e-bike systems in general. Like if you're really if you're able to calculate, you ride them enough and you're like, okay, I know I've been in this mode, however percentage of my ride, and I'm at this battery percentage, I know I can do this. I have this remaining. Whereas like if you're not familiar with it, you might be like, I need it to tell me more information so that I know how much farther I can go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure, because it seems like there's a lot of time invested in development of those things and integration of it. But if I'm just like, yeah, you know, like at some point, maybe it'll just all settle and we'll be like, I mean, we've settled in certain ways on like what the top two displays kind of are and what information they give you, and you have a thumb controller and all of that. Yeah.
But
think
Jason,
I want
like-
a weather forecast.
Yeah. I was
want it
gonna
to tell me
say, I
what the
think
weather
like
is gonna be.
like weather forecast, and I think like trail guidance for people that are in areas that they are not familiar with. Like if someone can go onto Trail Forks and sync it with their screen and go on a ride and know that they know where they're going is kind of cool, you know. I find it hard to look down at the screen when I'm actually riding. So the only time you really look at it is when you're climbing, you know, when you're stopped. So maybe the guidance thing, and then maybe like to be able to lock your bike or have it make an alarm sound or something if you need to run into a store, or but those kinds of things.
the
I think would
Avanox
be-
does that, right?
Yeah, I think Bosch does it as well. I think it just
Okay,
takes
for
a
sure
bit
Bosch
to like
does.
figure it out and actually use it,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, I think most of them do it, and I think a lot of them have the trail map stuff on them as well. I know the Avanox screen has like a SIM card slot that I guess you can figure out what you could do with that. Maybe you have to pay for a subscription for your SIM card, but it's like, I don't
Watch
actually,
your,
I
watch
feel
your POV
terrible.
footage.
Yeah, I feel terrible that I don't know that stuff, but it's just, yeah. I think we're more about riding than that,
Yeah,
and it's just cool to have. It's cool to have the touch screen, and the one thing I do like it for is having the touch screen is really helpful when you want to adjust modes and settings and things. So like you can go in and adjust the things that most other ones you'll have to go into the app on your phone
Yeah.
and connect to the
I
thing
hate
and do
that.
the whole thing. Yeah, I hate that.
It's
So
such a pain in the ass.
it's a pain. So on this one, you can just go into the screen. You can change your modes. You can change the order of your modes. You can change the power, the Newton meters, how sensitive it is to your input. You can change it, like all of that stuff just on the screen, which is cool.
And you're finding it durable enough, like with the elements you ride in and all that?
I haven't broken any screens yet. It sits pretty nicely in the top tube, so it's quite rare that you'd be able to like smash that, you know. And I do treat it pretty badly, and Lars knows where we live. It's like you're riding in muck a lot of the time, and I come home and I just power wash the thing like pretty aggressively, because I want to try and do the stuff that people do, and people do some
for sure.
stuff like turn their bike upside down and then like take a bucket and like pour the bucket over the entire thing, you know. So it's like, and then like there's obviously got to be like cooling elements around the motor, so there's a lot of ability for ingress of water, and then that goes all the way down the down tube and sits on the back of the underside of the screen, you know, which is like, so like I try to do that stuff just to see what's going to happen because people do it. So yeah, it's been pretty good.
I'm lazy. I put mine on my wife's bike or bike rack on our car and just go through the car wash.
Doesn't it only get the outside though? What about the other side that faces the car? You have to like come out, turn it around, and go do another lap.
I gotta go in reverse.
Spinning things. Yeah.
You just back it back in. Oh man, I feel like we're constantly cleaning stuff here, dude.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's definitely, especially this time of year. It's just like drying one pair of shoes, wearing the next pair of shoes, and like dry those when you get back, and then we're swapping shoes, and I just wear like muddy clothes at this point. I just leave like, because the thing is, you're like 5 minutes into a ride and you're already like covered again, so it's no point like wearing something clean. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, still fun.
Yeah, can't relate. No idea what you're talking about.
Well, it's just hard for me because I was where you are, Jason, for like 12 years, right? So, it's definitely an adjustment.
Yeah, no kidding.
But when it's good, it's good. It's really good.
Would say overall, it's better more often than it is here. That's for sure. Riding wise.
I think, I don't know, you would have to measure it, right? Because we have those windows, and like those sort of like spring and fall seasons are really good, especially the beginning of those things. And then summer gets pretty much like where you are at some point, where everything's just dry and blown out. And then
but
winter,
you have trails is the thing.
Yeah.
Like even if it's dry and blown out, you still have Bellingham trails that aren't San Diego trails. Because it's hot.
But you
and
guys
blown
have
out
some
here
good trails, dude.
We do, but we have those same trails all year round, you know?
Yeah, it's
you guys
true.
have like a new trail every week. It's crazy.
I know. That is crazy. It is crazy how like often there's something new to ride. It is pretty nuts. Like I'm still like, I think I've been here maybe coming up for 4 years, and I still definitely haven't ridden a huge portion of the trails. I don't know, like Lars, you've been here for how long? Like
16 years or something this go around, but I'm still finding new trails, and I've had a bit slower last like 4 or 5 years on the, like less frequently on the bike in the last few years. So I'm like a golden retriever. I'm like, oh, what's that? I haven't ridden that. Let's go find it.
There's certain times of the year where it's really good too, and people just like all of a sudden just want to ride. I know recently, like maybe like, what was it, like a month ago, Lars, where Bryn is just like texting like every day. He's just like, he's just trying to get in as much as possible, as quickly as possible before the end of that perfect dirt window. So it's
this
cool.
weekend was a bit like that here. I mean, in between, last week was super gnarly with weather, and we're going into another really heavy weather week, and we had like 2 days that were really, really nice, and 55 degrees. It was full shoulder season in the middle of December.
Crazy.
And it's like everybody's frantic to get out because you know what's coming and what you just got out of.
That's how it is when it rains here. Like for the 48 hours afterwards before it dries, people just go crazy.
It's cool though. It's cool to have that, man.
Yeah.
I think it's important because it does motivate you as well. And I think if it was perfect all the time, it's like it just loses. It's really cool. It's like people that surf, right, or snowboard or whatever. It's like those days that are those days. It's like those are the days, man. And it's cool to have them. If they were just there all the time, or if they were never there, like. So, yeah, I think that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of those days that we all look forward to, do you think 5-10 years from now we'll only be on e-bikes having those days? Or are those days happening right now currently? I mean, they are for you, Troydon, but like, are we giving up analog bikes? Is that the future?
I don't think people will ever fully give up analog bikes, especially the more competitive side of the sport, right? Like, people are always going to want to be strong and, you know, at their physical peak. And I think to get there, you need to ride analog bikes, you know. I think that e-bikes will maybe be used more and more as tools, you know, for other aspects. So guys that race can get more descending time in to really hone those skill sets on a heavier bike. Maybe that translates to something more positive for them when they get on their regular bike, you know. So I don't think it's going to go away. Like, I'd like to think it's going to get more popular. And as you get older, if you're not one of those competitive riders or very purist trying to hold on to, you know, that physical capability, I think like you might be like us at some point, Jason. I'll give you like another 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of split on all of it. Part of me really does think that in, I don't know how many years out, but just say a ways out, I can picture everybody having their mountain bike, having e-bike abilities if they choose to. So maybe it'll be a bike that and maybe say looking at trail category and up. I have a hard time picturing an XC weighted bike also having a motor and battery in it, and maybe that will exist someday. But yeah, like if you could have a 34-pound trail bike that you can just decide to turn on or off, I would think most people might ride it on. But like what you're alluding to, like the opportunities you can still train with it in different ways. You get different things out of it, but it just seems like so much of our industry right now is focused on that development. And as we were talking about, regular bikes have become a little stagnant in a good way. Like they're just really good right now.
Yeah.
The only thing evolving is the E side of it. So why not just at some point those just become one thing?
Well, it's kind of like what we spoke about right at the beginning, where if you can take your motor out and your battery out and bolt in a bottom bracket, you've just turned your e-bike into a regular bike, and you can take it on your trip to Whistler, or you can take it on your trip to New Zealand where you're going to go and do some enduro riding and then some park riding. And you don't have to worry about flying with batteries and motors and overweight baggage, etc. So I think, I think we're almost there already. Like, especially with the way they look now, you know, where it's like they don't look like the e-bikes that we used to have anymore. So,
on the flip side there, I gotta say, at Transition, we had one of the TQ Trek bikes for a while, and every time I rode it, even in the high power mode, but like I couldn't wrap my head around it. I was just like, just not enough.
Totally.
You know, and like that bike could easily be set to mimic
a regular bike.
Basically just offset the additional weight that it had. And so you're climbing at the same rate. You have a little bit of assistance. Yeah, it's like the mental shift is so hard. You're like, well, I'm on an e-bike and it's not doing the e-bike thing.
Yeah, dude, for sure.
That's why I struggle with those. It's like that's why I find that like a hard segment, man, where I get it. I get the whole thing of trying to have this bike that feels more like a regular bike and, you know, but just gives you that little bit extra. But I don't know. And I think, again, power to weight ratio comes into play. I actually like the weight of an e-bike. And I think more and more people are starting to enjoy that as well, especially guys that are more into the gravity side of the sport. Yeah, and you know, just like you see these guys adding weights to downhill bikes. I think a lot of that comes from them spending a lot of time on e-bikes and being like, damn, this thing feels so planted and it turns really well. And like, you know, what if I add some weight to the bottom bracket of my downhill bike? Is it going to feel the same? Right. So, I don't know that I've stuck to like full power bikes, and I think we'll always be down that road because I think we're already at a crossroads where half power and full power are so close to each other that I just don't see the benefit of sacrificing. I'd rather just, if I wanted to have, a bike that's more like a half power bike, I would just put a 600-watt battery in and turn the power down. And, maybe I'm still 2 or 3 pounds heavier than the lightweight version, but is that really enough to warrant that bike,
Yeah. Yeah, I think in my utopia in the future, the lightweight bike that you could ride as analog or e-bike would still give you like full power and full range.
Yeah.
Like it would literally just be an e-bike right now, but be, I guess, just really lighter would be the main thing, and packaged more neatly and maybe a little more efficient. And I don't know, maybe, and I think it's fun to think about where things are kind of going like that, because when SL bikes came out, that was my jam. I thought it was like the coolest thing, and I still do have. I like it for the reasons that e-bikes, full-size e-bikes, are trending towards, where they can ride more similarly to your regular bike, and you get that similar experience. But then you have extra power to get you back up the hill, and we're just killing that SL segment right now with the development of full-size batteries and motors. And but yeah, like your example, Lars, with the TQ Trek, like I rode a Levo SL for a while, and I would just ride it off all the time because none of my friends have e-bikes, and it was like fine. It wasn't that big of a deal. And it just kind of, that was like the first time where I was like, you could just have one bike, and then you're not having to spend a bunch of money on 2 bikes. And like maybe one day we'll just have one bike that's really good at both things.
So you would want a
But
bike
who knows?
that
maybe we'll go a way different way,
Yeah.
What's
But
that?
just so I understand, you would want a bike that you don't have to do anything to. You're just like, cool, I turn it on if I want to ride it, and I don't turn it on if I want to ride it as analog. You don't want to have to
Exactly.
go
Like,
through the motion of like, okay, I don't want to ride it as an e-bike, so I'm going to take the battery out and swap the bottom bracket and do all this stuff. You don't really want to deal with that.
Or maybe it would be a
simpler.
Maybe
So maybe just
maybe
like
be
remove the battery.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. And because I mean, really, like maybe I probably said this at some point on other podcasts, but oh, my dog just burned out. On Specialized's system, I'm just familiar with that right now because we rode it some this year. Their full size, their newest Levo, you can pull a battery, run it off just a range extender. It's like half power, small range, all that stuff, but you drop a lot of the weight. And I was like, I'm going to get a Levo SL, drop the battery, run it off a range extender when I want, and ride as regular, but they don't allow you to do that. But that was kind of like an idea where, because I do like the way an e-bike rides with the whole weight aspect, but personally, I would still pick the feeling of my normal enduro or trail bike and maybe add a pound or 2 pounds to it to get a little bit of that similar benefit of feeling of that low hung mass. But when I go ride a full size e-bike, if it's say 50 pounds, it rides so much differently that I'm getting a different experience. And if I know that you can ride, if that's all you're riding, you adjust, right? And I think I would get used to it in time. But, I like having my bike be a little bit more nimble, I guess.
We're getting close though. Like the difference between a full power bike that's 50 pounds and a full power bike that's 45 pounds is significant. It rides like its riding and descending characteristics are considerably different.
Yeah.
And very, I mean, I don't know that I would want a full power e-bike that's lighter than 40 pounds. I think like
for what
42
aspect?
Because it would be too nervous.
Like just climbing mostly, obviously, like the
and descending. Like I know, like going back and forth from my e-bike to my trail bike, and my powertrain is dead now. Like it fully, the whole system is dead. It won't take a charge. It won't turn on. So I've been riding my Sentinel, and my last couple of rides on my Sentinel, I'm like, I feel like I'm on a spur. Like riding, descending gnarly trails. I'm like, man, I'm just pinging off everything. It just, so it's going to take me a bit of time to get accustomed to the lightweight of it. But I don't know. I think for a full power bike, that 40 pound, 42-ish, I think is kind of like
sweet spot.
That magic sweet spot. Yeah.
Yeah. it's the BMX effect. Like you can ride mountain bikes all day, and if you go get on a BMX bike, you're gonna feel sketchy as hell. And,
yeah.
But if you ride a BMX bike all day and you get on a mountain bike, you're like, the stability is all time. This
Insane.
is crazy.
I'm a couch. I'm a
It
couch
always
potato.
works up. It never works down. You know, you'll get on your dirt jump, and the first run every day for me on a dirt jumper is like, could be life altering. You know, like I never know how it's gonna go. But the next time I get on my mountain bike, I'm like, I feel like I can just jump off anything. Like it. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Who knows how light things will get? You know, and it seems like we're a lot more immune these days to it's okay if your bike's a little bit heavier as well. So, yeah.
I think we can get there. We just need the solid state batteries. If we get the solid state batteries and the motors get a little bit lighter, like I think we can have a full power bike between 42 and 44, 5 pounds. Like, yeah,
it doesn't seem that far away.
That would be sick. I just hate how long it all takes, you know? Like, I guess it's just like, it just feels like it takes long, dude. Like, especially the battery
Can't we just
tech,
get there
man.
now?
Yeah.
I feel like the battery
We're
tech
all these
just
smart
moves
people at, come
slowly.
on.
Yeah. I feel like there's not enough super smart people focused on mountain biking stuff. They're like working for the wrong people, right? They're making like semiconductors. Or yeah, exactly.
Well, and there's the safety aspect around batteries and charging, discharging as well, which definitely complicates things.
That is good too. Like the fast charging stuff is getting better. So I feel like having to swap batteries is almost less prevalent now because I guess with older bikes you had to wait five hours plus to recharge them, and now it's down to like 2. So you can go on a big ride and then go grab a bite and kind of recharge and go on another ride. So maybe less battery swapping needed as that gets better as well.
Yeah. Is there anything else we should touch on? We definitely went longer than I thought, than I thought we were going to, but it was good.
Would you really want 220 rotors on every bike, Jay?
No, 200. Sorry, did I say 220? I meant 200.
I think you said 220.
Sorry.
I think you said...
Sorry, 200.
Yeah.
We can stitch that in right now to the very beginning.
Yeah.
No, then you would need adapters probably, you know?
You'd need like some crazy weird
Reducers.
adapter to reduce it.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Don't even talk about that. That's what's next.
Or start cutting out half your brake pads.
That's...
You just use like single piston on each side.
Yeah.
Flip one around.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely covered majority notes in what I had written down. Is there any other burning things we wanted to talk about?
E-bikes in the bike park.
There's definitely, I think we will do another one of these because this will spawn a lot of questions, I'm sure, or other ideas.
Yeah.
Because we didn't even talk about like regulations around e-bikes and, you know, different
Boring.
use- Yeah. I mean,
You did have something about max speed.
I was just about to mention
Jason?
that. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're cut at 20 miles per hour, but like, I don't know who's necessarily the final say on deciding that, but like, should they not be able to go faster? I see
Doesn't
Sur on flip
Specialized
around at
have
50
that-
miles per hour.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Doesn't
they do
Specialized have
the
that thing?
commute
I think
mode.
you can do it on the Avanox as well, the US screen.
Yeah, you can go 30 on that, whatever that thing is.
I think it's 28. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That does actually scare me a little bit. A few years ago, I bought a Rad Power commuter bike on Craigslist, and I figured out a way to hack it. I bought a controller for a 20-inch wheeled version, so it goes like 38 miles an hour or something, and the thought of just a
Regular.
non-experienced rider having access to that amount of speed on the streets is like terrifying. Like I've nearly killed myself multiple times. Like I've been run off the road by cars getting pissed at me by passing them. Seriously, I've had that happen, and definitely scared myself on it, and being very capable to control it. So the thought of like people that less experienced people having access to that speed on a bicycle is pretty gnarly. So I don't know. I mean, I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but it does kind of.
But it does exist, right? Like, the access is already there if you bought a Rad Power or a Sur-On.
Totally. Yeah.
And then for some reason in mountain biking, everybody's like, gets real sensitive about how fast they can go. And like, I don't know. I feel like we have maybe more experienced users who are buying $10,000 mountain bikes. No, like it's probably a lot that know what they're doing more so than people buying the commuter bikes, I would think.
Totally.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I also haven't ridden an e-mountain bike that hasn't been hacked before.
Okay. But you mean all of them are hacked?
Yeah.
Is that what you do on the side, Lars? Do you just hack in e-bikes, bro?
No.
Can I bring my bike around?
Yeah. How? Hypothetically, do you hack an e-bike?
You know, a lot of times, an OE brand has the ability to do that, has access to do that.
Got you.
That a consumer does not.
So just go by the Outpost in Bellingham and
do not do that.
just kidding.
It might also
awesome
explain
for Lars
why
when
my
you get
e-bike
there.
doesn't work anymore.
Oh God.
I feel like the thing too now with the power being what it is you get to that cutoff really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like you have 1,000 watts and you're not on a very steep climb or you're on a flat surface, dude. You're at 20 miles and like it's just like immediate. So yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one because you kind of want to understand that there's a reason for that being there. You want to be grateful that we don't have the rule that they have in Europe and the UK where it's like, what is it, like 15, 16?
Yeah.
16,
like that?
I think is what 26 kph is 16.
Yeah. So I'm like thankful that we don't have that rule. When it comes to trail access, all that kind of stuff, I don't really understand how that helps with that stuff because we're going faster than that on the way down anyway, you know? And even like the most powerful motors can't keep you at 25 miles per hour up a technical climb or a fairly steep climb. It's just impossible. So like when you're actually doing those speeds, it's like on like some flat fire road where you could see miles ahead of you anyway. So is it that dangerous? Like I just, you know, I feel like it's more dangerous, like Lars says, when you're actually on the road amongst vehicles and you're going 28 miles per hour, you know, as opposed to like climbing a fire road where you can see, you know, clearly what's ahead of you and it's not that steep, so you can actually do whatever speed. So I don't know, the speed thing is strange.
Yeah. It sure feels like the mountain bike industry got really attached with e-bikes feeling like a normal mountain bike experience. I feel like you see marketing verbiage around that all the time. Like it's
a
you,
different
but
thing.
more or whatever Specialized's thing is. And I'm kind of like, why? Like, why? We also at the same time talk all the time about how they descend uniquely and the benefits of that. And maybe sometimes like the focus around it creating a natural riding experience maybe limits our idea of what they should be a little bit, like the speed thing. And it'd be interesting, like you're saying, you can reach 20 pretty quick these days, like especially if you're just ripping a fire road up or an actual paved road or something. And like I would love to be able to put it in a higher setting just to, you know, a lot of stuff in SoCal you are like just cruising up through a neighborhood to access your descent. So, all right, I think we did it. I think we'll come back to this at some point though. E-bikes are like the hottest, latest, greatest thing that you should go out
There's
and
so
buy.
much to talk about.
There really is.
It's wild.
Yeah, I don't want to mention any of our other things we haven't touched on. We'll leave that for the next go around. But Troydon, thanks for joining in on this. Your insights, sweet, and
you're welcome.
fun chatting.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. Always happy to jump on with you guys. And if you do it again and you want, you know, someone to weigh in on stuff, I'm more than happy to jump on. Easy.
Sweet, easy peasy. Cool, right on. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll maybe see you next week.